Hi, and welcome to Wait, Hold Up What? I'm your host, Dawn, and on today's episode, we talk to my new friend, Ronisha Hayes. I met Ronisha at a networking event a couple of weeks ago at Dead Stock Coffee that was put on by Business for a Better Portland, an organization that is working to remind people of the great things of Portland and focus on small businesses and really understanding what that looks like in the sectors and breaking kind of the status quo. And Ronisha was there as a business owner and a person who works in the Portland community. Ronisha owns a business called Hayes Consulting and Coaching, in which it is a minority and women-owned financial consulting agency. They service businesses, nonprofits, and individuals nationwide. She also works for Home Forward, which is the largest provider of affordable housing in Oregon with the Housing Authority of Portland. So this girl's got some cred, right? And I met her by kind of just interrupting her and stalking her and in all the good ways and overhearing a conversation. And I just had to know more. And one of the things that struck me about her as a person is her confidence. It was out loud and beautiful and gorgeous, but not distracting or pompous. She just knew who she was, and she filled a room in such a beautiful and positive way. And I knew I wanted to get a little bit of that for myself and understand where that came from. And so in this episode, we kind of just freestyle talk about confidence and where that comes from and what it's like to be a woman owning your own business and owning your own purpose in life. And I think you'll really enjoy the freewheeling comfort in which this conversation kind of went. We hope that you'll enjoy it. So please welcome Ronisha Hayes to the podcast. Wait, Hold Up What? A podcast from the Women at Eliminate Girl Hate is sponsored by... Can a bra help change the trajectory of a girl's life? Did you know that nationally only 20% of girls engage in at least 60 minutes of daily physical activity, a lower rate than boys? Or that girls' participation in sports drops off significantly from the ages of 10 to 17? Wait, hold up, what? Yeah. Some of the barriers that contribute to this include lack of financial means, lack of role models, dropping body confidence, and concerns about body changes, including breast development and the need for a sports bra. The simple intervention of a sports bra, along with the normalization of body development, can change the trajectory of a girl's relationship with body movement for her whole life. You heard that right, her whole life. Every girl deserves to feel comfortable and confident in her own body. And that's why Bras for Girls partners with more than 25 athletic brands and donors just like you to distribute new, high-quality sports bras and breast development booklets to girls in need, ranging from the age of 8 to 18. Let's get girls in well-fitting sports bras right when they need them the most. Girls plus sports equals a beautiful world. You can donate to Bras for Girls today at brasforgirls.org. And as a side note, Eliminate Girl Hate has partnered with brasforgirls.org and will be donating a proceed of all merchandise sales to helping girls get in the bras that they need and keep them in sports. You can help by shopping the Eliminate Girl Hate store today. Did you know that 80% of the world's purchases are influenced and made by women? Or that 90% of product development, manufacturing, and corporate leadership is led by men? I don't know about you, but that seems like some funky, disconnected math. This disconnect means large segments of the population are not getting their needs met because the products being made never even asked us what problems we needed to solve. Instead, companies use a pink it and shrink it philosophy. Not familiar? I bet you are. You know it. Take a man's product, make it smaller, paint it pink, sell it for 25% more. Then, when the products fail to make a dent in the market or to sell rapidly, they say things like, the market wasn't ready. Or, we were so sure it was going to work, I wonder what happened. And then they move on. I'm here to tell you, the market is most definitely ready. But the market is savvy. And putting some paint and saying it was designed for us is a slap in the face. We have real needs, and we're not settling for anything less than real solutions. If this sounds familiar to you and your business, then it's time to connect with Eliminate Girl Hate. We help businesses understand the lucrative consumer segment of women and how to meet their needs in authentic ways. From problem solving, product creation, marketing, and even human resource practices, we help create safe and equitable spaces for the female segment. And these safe spaces increase profit margins, employee retention, and brand loyalty along the way. It's time to start a revolution and meet your consumers where they are. It's time to eliminate girl hate. Check us out, eliminategirlhate.com, and find out how we can help your business today. Have you ever dreamed of writing a book? I know I have. Or maybe, also like me, you've started a manuscript. Maybe you've started 10 and you've just never finished it, or never let anybody else read it, or never thought you could publish it. Wherever you are in the process, Jim Woods would like to help. Jim's a writer just like you, but he's also a coach who loves helping writers bring their books into the world and make them a reality. If you are like me, sometimes you need that push, a supportive but demanding cohort along the way to put your stories out into the world and keep you on track. Jim Woods is that cohort. Visit jimwoodswrites.com and click the Let's Chat button. Mention our podcast for a free clarity call and get your story out into the world because we need it. We are sponsored by Epiphany Recording Studio. Creativity needs to flow freely if you want to reach that aha moment that we're all looking for. At Epiphany Recording Studio, their goal is to create space that takes full advantage of those moments. From podcast and video production to music creation, you get the support you need to create compelling stories with a competitive sound. Your ideas can flow freely because they partner with you free of judgment, ready to be vulnerable, do the work, and make your projects look and sound their best. So let Epiphany Recording Studio help you reach your artistic vision by visiting them today at epiphanyrecordingstudio.com. Tell them Dawn sent you. Let's get this episode started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wait, Hold Up, What? Today, my guest is Ronisha Hayes. And I always like to tell people how I met someone and how we know each other. And like many of the guests, this is only the second time I'm meeting you, just kind of exciting. But third time we've talked. So it's basically like we're BFFs. So we met at a networking event in downtown Portland that's trying to revive business, introduce small business owners. And she was talking to a friend of mine, Stephen Green. So I don't know that I told you this, but Stephen Green's father is my sister's godfather, or was before he passed, rest in peace. And so I've known them, their family, since I was a little kid. And his dad just was so obsessed with my sister. Like, my sister was adorable. She would probably like me to say she's adorable now, but whatever. And so he just loved her. He had all boys. And so having this little girl around or whatever. And so we've just known him for a really long time. And I was eavesdropping because I'm very uncomfortable with networking, and heard you guys talking and thought, okay, I want to talk to her, but how do I do that? And then I just kind of got nosy and said, hey, I heard you talking. Tell me more about that. And that was my very awkward way of networking and meeting you. And we talked for quite a while. And most of what we talked about was being a woman and being confident. And instantly from that, I was like, I think I got to get her on the podcast. So that's my really long intro of how we met and how awkward I am. So what I want us to start is just tell us why you were there, like networking. Obviously, that means you have a small business, and what you do.
I love free coffee. So that was, I will tell you right now that I saw on LinkedIn Thursday afternoon, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., Stephen is buying coffee. Yeah. And I'm right down the street. Of course I love coffee. I would never say no to that. No, but the coffee shop, Dead Stock, it was one of the first like coffee shops in Portland, right? So being able to go there, visit, and I actually had no idea it was networking. Like I literally was like, it is free coffee. Like this is free coffee.
Would you want to know what makes it more awkward for me? I'm so awkward. I went 30 minutes early and bought my own coffee. Because I was just like, oh, well, then I'll have a steak and I can see where everybody is. Like, I just get so nervous in those instances.
Had a seat, you had an area, like you were stationed, you had your bag, your
everything
ready.
Taking notes. I was so ready.
I think when I invited you outside, you're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm great.
I'm so, networking scares the heck out of me, but I made a commitment to it this year to just go out and meet people and not worry about it. And so I've been doing wild and crazy things to do that, like beyond my imagination, but there's still some creature comforts that I stick with. And in that environment, I was like, well, I should probably stay here. And so I did.
Yeah, and you did great. People came to you.
That's
right.
right.
Like that, you were the attraction.
Magnetic energy, right?
Exactly. We had a group of like 6, 7 by the end of it.
Yeah.
But no, so I was going for the coffee. I will say that anything free, I love. I love spending money too, but free is always fun. I have a small business as well, Hayes Consulting and Coaching. And really what we focus on is just empowerment. So we're a consulting agency and we do financial empowerment, supplier diversity empowerment. We do career coaching empowerment, small business development empowerment, right? Like, what are you looking for and how can we empower you in that way? So when I first started, it was like, Hayes Consulting and Coaching is a financial agency in the Portland metro area, right? Like, it was very, like, and it's like, no, I'm superwoman. Like, I do a lot of stuff for people, but I also know, like, if I can't help you, like, I can't help you, but I can give you what I can and then pass you along. So that's really what our business does. But we work with government agencies primarily. So there are direct funders, but it trickles down to supporting individuals. And there's this thought, like as people interact with us and work with us, because we don't charge, right? Because we're funded by another model that it's like this access to this free resource, although it's free to them. You know, there's someone paying for it. Sure. And that's my favorite business model. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
So for anyone listening, right? Like pay for other people to receive a service is a great business model. Pay it forward, right? Pay for someone's coffee, help someone get some business coaching, all of that.
Yeah. And how did you get into that line of work?
I was at an organization and I had just got promoted to credit manager. And then I had got promoted to Oregon Woman Business Manager. And it was interim Oregon Women's Business Manager, let me tell you. And there wasn't a lot of flexibility in like how I wanted to do things because it's government funded, right? Or it's a nonprofit. So you have to see what your investors want you to do and follow those policies. But then there was another layer of like, we were a sub agency of another agency that was in 50 countries and had 5,000 people. And like, we're just one small program and just not having a lot of control or impact. I guess it's like we have all these really big ideas, but we don't have the funding or the resources, or they have to be done a certain way. And I was like, I could do this, right? Like this is probably why those clauses are in companies, right? They're like, you can't leave or take anything, right? I didn't take anything, but I was just like, I can do a credit coaching really well. I can do financial coaching really well, and I can do it the way I want. And that's how it started. And I didn't charge then, right? Like my first client, she did my hair, everything unique. She still does my hair, but it's like, you do my hair, I'll update your resume, right? You do my hair, we can help you open a credit card, like just those steps like that of just bartering. And that's how it started. And then it turned to like, it was a blessing. I'm just going to tell you the story, everyone. So thanks for listening. I literally just had my baby like a week before this happened. And I got an email from a government agency and they're like, hey, we have this idea. We want to try it out. We found you on this directory and would you be open to it? It's only $10,000 and we don't know where this is going to go, but like, would you be open to it? And, I'm like, heck yeah, I'm open to it. And, 2.5, 3 years later, we're in multiple counties doing the same work, right? So it started with one cold email, and now we're contracted. I don't know if I can say the agencies, but we're working in Washington County or in Multnomah County, and just helping BIPOC business owners and disadvantaged business owners get opportunities and access to opportunities from large purchasers.
It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's such a blessing. And like, if you would have asked me, like, Renisha, you're going to start your business to do supplier diversity, I'd be like, no, what the heck, right? Like, it was financial coaching. And it's transitioned into like just empowerment. And that comes on different frames and levels.
So I love all of that because I believe in order to empower people, you have to feel empowered. And I think people get confused on what that means or what that looks like. And I think oftentimes women get a bad rap for confidence, for using or taking advantage of that empowerment. And so where I want to start a little bit is you said to yourself, I can do that. Where did that come from? Where did this voice inside of you that said, I can do that come from? Were you always driven? Were your parents like, you can do like, where does that just initial belief come from?
Yeah. So no shade to my parents. I love you so much. But like mom worked all the time, right?
Mhm.
Like I could not do anything if I didn't have a car, right?
Mhm.
Or a bus ticket. Like,
Yeah.
so swimming out, gymnastics
Yeah.
out, like cheerleading, I had to do it and I got rides from friends, right? So that drive definitely came from an early age of like not knowing that someone isn't there to provide it because they're doing something. They're
Mhm.
prioritizing something else. My mom had to pay bills. She
Of
had to do
course.
all those things. And it's like, well, I want to go to cheer practice.
Yeah.
So if in order for me to go to cheer practice, I need to find someone who's going to give me a ride. I need to make sure that I am good at it and I can make it to practice and all that stuff. It took a little bit more initiative and planning and coordinating on my end. And that was like 14, 15.
But even that, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this where it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings, but I come from a family of six kids, right? And we are all very different in that initiative and drive department, right? Now, I was reading something the other day that says no sibling has the same parent, which I loved. I was like, oh, this is baffling. I mean, it just was eye opening, right? So we all have a different parent. And because of that, we then all takes different things from them, right? But I have noticed that there's a certain type of person that takes it and says, but I want it, so I'm going to go do what it takes to get it. And then there's another person that just says, that's not fair.
Yeah.
So why do you think you were like, well, I want it, so I'm just going to go figure it out?
My mom's gonna be so mad at this. I remember the Christmas she got mine too. So I'm a middle daughter,
Yeah.
right? I have an older brother and a younger brother, and then there's 4 siblings that we added to our family probably about 10 years ago,
Nice.
and they're amazing, and I love them. And there's like a 15-year age gap between us, or 17 years. So I'm the fun big sister.
Sure.
Anyway, but I remember one Christmas, my mom got my brother a phone, my older brother a phone, and my little brother a phone, but she didn't give me a phone because she was like, you might text boys. Right?
Yeah,
Like
the girl.
that was like the story.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Yeah.
okay. And like that like character building right at that moment of like, well, I'll get my own phone then, right? Like, what do I need to get my own phone? What do I need to do to get my own car, my own stuff? And that's really how it started, was just being a middle child and a girl in a predominantly male household,
Yeah.
and having a mother who really enjoyed masculine, like she loved football, right? Like she had a very, and she's fantastic, and she's girly now, which is hilarious. But
it also, I don't actually think it has to do with girly or masculine as much as it does societally, especially, I think it's changing some now, right? But, we had to own the ownness, right?
yeah,
That sentence probably was not as erudite as I was hoping it to be, people. But we were responsible. Well, sorry, boys. The boys weren't responsible for being good citizens. We just had to avoid them. And it doesn't teach us then how to navigate that, right? And I think we have this, you're seeing this conversation about how independent women are now. They're not getting married as the young, all of these things. And people are like, well, what, we're independent, nasty cat ladies, miserable cat ladies, whatever it is. I keep repeating that.
I have like 4 cats, guys. Yeah.
I love it. See, we're miserable. But I think what people don't realize is that we were raised to be that way, because we were raised to navigate around men and to have special rules so that we avoided the pitfalls that might have happened or did happen to our mothers and our grandmothers, right? And so we ended up learning how to do all of this for ourselves. And then we go out in the world and we're like, okay, I'm going to kick down doors and open up windows, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly of this generation of women who are like, oh, not only am I woman, hear me roar, but I got like 42 other women that are roaring out here, and I want to support them and show them and empower them, right?
Yeah.
And so you get people that like you and like I that want to do that and share that and say, well, I did this alone and I wish I didn't have to.
Yeah.
And so if I can help you, then I will do that. Right.
Yeah.
And that clearly shows in what your business is and how you're going to supply that wealth of knowledge that you have to other people.
Yeah. I love that.
So you do this, and it's one thing to be like, well, no one else is going to do it for me, so I'll do it myself. But you walk in a room, and let me tell you something. Everybody in that room notices who you are. That's right. She's posed for the camera, for those of you not watching. And that is a unique trait for people. Do you think you were born with it? Do you think you built it?
Or I definitely built it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Definitely built it. If you look at pre-8th grade, like definitely you're not even picking me for dodgeball, right? Like
it's the measure of success, people.
Like I am like, I can't run. I can't, you're not picking me. And it was one of those things where it was like, I have to build this, right? I want to be a provider of opportunity in space, right? Even if it's not provided for me, right? Like growing up and going in spaces and maybe potentially not being accepted or being invited in those spaces. And like, how can I create a space in myself, right? That saying of like, build your own table if there's not a seat at the table, right? It's like, you actually have to build the table, but I didn't intentionally build the table, right? Like I wasn't like, here's a hammer, here's some nails, I'm building this table of confidence and empowerment. It's just like, you're going through things and you're just like, man, like, luckily this is making me stronger. That wasn't the thought when it was happening. It was like, oh my God, why is this happening?
You're not given a hammer or nails. So actually you're using tape and twine and you're MacGyvering all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
To then make a really strong table.
Yeah.
And then once you have it built, the women or people, let's not exclude, that come after you can do it easier because they now say, oh, well, here's the hammer. I saw what you did. Yeah. I'm going to use a hammer and nails to do it. And it's going to be a little bit easier.
That's such a great analogy. I love that. I do some organizational development work under human resources. And a lot of my responsibility is creating resources.
Yeah.
Right? Like creating a resource from something that's in my head, putting it on a piece of paper, on a video, in a PowerPoint so that someone else can do the exact same thing or their alternative to the thing I'm trying to show them. So it's like now my body is like, how do I produce resources? And like in every avenue, it's kind of annoying. But
well, we have this weird culture because right now we're not in the gig economy anymore. However, everywhere you look, people are trying to do their own thing, right? Yeah. Conversely, no one wants to do anything themselves. So it's this really strange inflection point, right? Where, I might offer services to somebody to coach or help them do and take them to the next level. I cannot tell you how many times I get a call about that service and they say, what if I just pay you to do it for me?
Yes.
And it is a really weird juxtaposition. And then because of that, you have an environment of people who own their own thing or do their own thing, but don't actually know how to do it because they've never done it themselves. And so it can be hard to find who are the real ones, for lack of a more professional way of saying that, and who authentically can help you and who are the charlatans that are selling you snake oil, right?
Yeah.
And and I think it's hard to tell the difference in modern culture.
And so I don't have like a formal mentor or like coach or like someone that I work with as like, oh, I have a business or like I need life coaching or therapist, right? Like I've never like had anything formal like that. I do have a pastor, right? Like, but that's just more of a relationship. So all of the mentors and women that I've interacted with have been organic of like, I just want to get to know you. And as I'm getting to know you and what you're doing, you're teaching me. So I have a couple of friends where I have like monthly meetings, right? We do similar work and we just do monthly meetings to like just talk and just learn from each other and just see how things are going. And then if we can't make it, we're like, all right, see you next month. You know what I mean? All right, girl, we're busy. We get it. Yeah. And that's, I don't know. It's just really useful.
And I would posit that true mentorship and coaching is that. We have sold coaching, right? We've sold this concept of paying for a coach. And I'm saying this as I offer coaching services at eliminategirlhate.com. But we sell this idea of mentorship and coaching, but every person that is in our life is a mentor or coach. And it is up to you and how you want to utilize what information they're giving to you. And some teach us through negative influence and some through positive influence. Now, I firmly believe everybody should have a coach, but whether you pay for that coach or it is just somebody in your life that you are getting something from, right?
Yeah.
And you have somebody who can help you out, I don't think that matters, right? It's all a matter of what it is. I have had all those things. So I literally, before this meeting or this conversation, was on a call with someone who was my coach that I paid for all through COVID. And somebody I've been involved in a community with for about 8 or 9 years now. I do no longer pay to be in his coaching programs, but I still have access to that community and to things that he does and so forth. And I still consider him my coach. If I really wanted or needed something, I could call him. Maybe I'd have to pay, maybe I wouldn't. I don't really know, right? But either way, I'm still learning from him, right?
Yeah.
But there's also this fluctuation of the types of coaches we need, the types of mentors we need. And I've even said this to him at that point in my life. I needed that community and I needed that message, but I wasn't ready to act on it. And that's really hard when you're paying a coach, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, you're ruining my program. Like, I need you to act. But I have since, and I have written to him, I've sent him emails and letters and said, this is all a result of that foundation.
Yeah.
But I needed the time to heal and to get some other things out of the way that were blocking my path and blocking my journey. And I think a lot of people are like that. And so, yes, a pastor can be a coach and a friend can be a coach and a family member, right? A stranger can be a coach, right? And I think people get that wrong. I also think people think you have to formally say, hi, will you be my mentor? No. Most mentors have no idea you're their mentor, which is kind of sad because we should be telling people that, but it's just the reality.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said to me, and I wrote it down because I loved how you worded it and you sort of alluded to it there. You said, where I am today is because of a strong woman who broke down a barrier.
Oh, yes. Multiple strong women. That
I just loved that concept. And I like it because there's a narrative that women are catty, that women do not support other women. And obviously there's a lot out there about empowering women and stuff like that as well, but there's still that narrative prevails. And so do you think those women were purposely doing that for you? Or it's a benefit you got from what they were doing for themselves?
Oh, no, purposely.
Okay.
I think that anyone with a position to be able to impact someone, like, use your power, use your privilege, use your position to positively support someone, right?
Mhm.
If you're a manager and you have an employee, if you're not trying to invest in that employee, you probably shouldn't be their manager, right? Like, maybe you need an employee you want to invest in, right? I don't know how to say it, but it's like you really should want to see someone move forward and progress in their life. And all of my supervisors, right? Like, everyone has been so just opportunity, right? Like I said, I want to be a provider of space and opportunity because that's what's been provided to me. And now, in the past, it hadn't been, but like now it's like I walk into a room and it's like, all y'all are women and there's one man. Okay.
Yeah,
You know, like, I love men, right? Like, don't get me wrong, but like, there's something about women leading the world. Like, it just makes sense. We hadn't had a chance to, and like, we could do some pretty great things when they let us be president, you know? So,
well, I'm going to say two things to that. It's funny because, yes, we haven't had the chance to out loud. Quietly, women, every major movement in the history of time started with women. If you really look at it, and I get it, I said every, and so I'm whatever. But if you really look at the past, true changes happened when women were in the background supporting what that was. From wars to peace treaties to other things, right? There is female involvement. And then also you have the fact that women were the ones holding up the communities. You know, men went to war, women held up the economy, and all, you know, they were the secret places to hide and, you know, when people were in trouble and all these different things that I feel like like I was going to use all these examples and then get history wrong, and I didn't want to be judged. So I stayed away from it. But there is this fact that has happened, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is let.
Mm.
So you said when they let us be president. And everybody talks like that, right? And here is the thing. And this is just going to be my own little political thing in this whole thing, I promise. There is no such thing as let. We are over 50% of the population. The lights just went off, but it's totally
good.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, you want me to jump or?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
When we believe in our power as a collective, no one has to give us permission to do anything, right?
Yeah.
We are the most powerful force on earth that is not one of the 5 elements. Right? Yeah. We're the 6th element, if you will.
I love it.
It's not earth, wind, and fire, it's us, right? I feel like I just shouted out my stepdad inadvertently by doing an EWF reference in this podcast. So it is harnessing that power and having confidence in that, to know that these thousands of years of a structure that has told us, no, little lady, you're not good enough. Yeah. That we are breaking all of that down and owning our power so that nobody ever has to let us do anything ever again.
So here I have to jump in here because I watch Bridgerton.
Yes.
Queen Charlotte is the queen.
Yes.
I still have, and there's been queens all through history.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, women were oppressed, but they were queen. Like, and I still, like, my mind is still trying to balance that, like cats, you know, it's like we worship cats at one point.
Yeah.
What switch? Like, what was that switch that had happened? Yeah. And even like Queen Elizabeth, like when she passed away, everybody was like, "Oh my God, did she pass away?"
She did.
Okay, sorry, she did. 2 people passed away, and they were old, and they were sort of. Betty White was the other one.
They were old and they were important, guys. Yeah, and I think a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to get too deep in this because we're here to talk about confidence, but a lot of that is this ideal that people get threatened when other people rise. And this is why I like the conversation of empowerment, right? Yeah. Because if we are threatened when other people rise, it means we subconsciously understand that we are going to have to work harder and we may not want to do that. And so the easier route is to squash the enemy than it is to be better and do better, which is so insane to me, right? Yeah. But it's also a very masculine trait that we have adopted or adapted over years and centuries of being in those types of cultures and those types of societies that place that importance of it. And I think what you're trying to do and what I'm trying to do is say, no, we can all win, right? So historically, when we look at women in the workforce, the majority of that happens in World War II, right? A little bit in World War I, but World War II. The men go to war, they need help in the factories, they bring in all of these women. These women come in, they kill it, right? They keep our economy afloat. The men come back. Sorry, little lady, you got to go. The men are back. They need the jobs. Yeah. This created something very, very strange for us, right? And then we have the baby boomer generation comes in, right? So all these women get pregnant, the suburbs start to explode. So you get kind of this expansion, this urban expansion that happens. And then, you hit the early 70s and you've got the equal rights movement, civil rights movement, women's movement, right? 60s and 70s. You have television, you have the invention of the microwave that comes into play. And people forget that all of these things changed culturally how we lived our lives. So if you think about Title IX comes in and it allows equal opportunity for women and girls in sports, in college and high schools. But Title IX has other things in it as well. So now women can be exposed to competition, to teamwork, to camaraderie, right? The dishwashers, the microwaves come in play. And so now dinner doesn't take as long. You have things later like the Swiffer, right? The Swiffer mop is so easy. And I'm not saying this was in a advertising room, but it's so easy a man can do it. So now we don't have to mop all day and shine silverware and all these things that were the job and the role of women don't exist anymore. And now inflation. And so we're going to work and we're getting into the workforce and divorce rates rise. And so now we have to work. We're single women with children. You have things like the crack epidemic of the 80s. You have gang violence in the 90s that left a lot of men no longer there to support families. And so women come in and take on multiple roles, and that changes culture.
Mhm.
And now we're tired. We're sick. We're tired.
Sugardaddy.com.
Right. Like we are just tired, and we're looking around and we're saying, I don't want my daughter to be this tired at this age. I don't want my sister, my whoever it is, my friends. And we are going out there and we're laying groundwork, because when we started in the workforce in that way, if there were 5 open jobs, there weren't 5 open jobs for women.
Yeah.
There was 1, if we were lucky. So they forced us to compete with each other. They forced this cattiness that they believe exists.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to sit here and go, oh, wait a minute, there's 5 jobs. Girl, let's go out and get them all.
Mhm.
And that is a different mindset that scares people and excites them all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think it feels empowering. And so I can go into an environment more comfortably with women, because I know we're all there for the same reason.
Right.
Right. And so I really like seeing younger women than me. You can't see this, y'all, but she's quite a bit younger than me, going in with so much confidence and without the baggage that all of that laid upon their mothers and their grandmothers and aunties and so forth.
Yeah.
You're able to come in and say, no, no, no. No one's going to do this for me but me. So get out of my way.
Right.
Does that feel
Or like
true?
pick up a bag and come on. Like,
yeah.
Like, geez.
You in?
If
We're
you're
Thelma
here,
and Louise in this.
Yeah. Might as well be useful, you know?
So at your age, before you start your own business and you come into a corporate environment, do you feel like being a woman is an asset, or do you feel like it's a liability at first?
I think I am just a little bit younger. I won't throw that out there. So when I entered the workforce after college, I actually was in an environment where there were 3 men and 20 women.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I remember just to this day, our former DI manager, who's no longer in that position, she asked all the men in the space, the 3, it was 2 men at this point now, how are you supporting and uplifting the women in your office space? And I was like, I get it. But like,
there's 2 of them. That's a heavy load.
So I might have lost track of the question, but I had to tell that story because but going into spaces and being, I felt confident, right? Because I came into the workforce and it was already predominantly women or women managers. The women hired me, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of work had been done. A lot of tilling of the soil had been done. So that when I got there, right, it was easy for me to just grow.
Yeah.
Right? You just sprinkle a little water on me, give me a laptop, you know, like give me some funds. I'm cool. Easy.
You're like, I am good. I'm an easy plant to grow.
But I majored in economics, right? And for those who don't know, economics historically is a white male, I can't even think of the word, but it's a white male education pursuit, right?
Yeah.
Degree. And I'm a Black woman. That's already another level to economics. And just being in an environment where it wasn't empowering for women, right? Like it literally wasn't. Like there are no books written by women economics that they were teaching us or giving to us. And it's like, I'm nervous. I'm terrified, right? I'm like, I gotta graduate college and then I gotta go into this workforce that you guys are telling me is male dominated. And I am just so blessed to be in the Pacific Northwest and in Portland, right? Because that narrative is still true, but I've just been blessed to be in spaces where there's women who have broken down barriers to get to where they're at, to make space for other women so that I can be there.
When you walk into those predominantly male spaces, do you think they see you as a woman first, or do you think they see you as Black?
I honestly, for those who don't know, I'm hot. So beautiful. So
I thought, but I was like, okay, I am not mad at you.
She stopped.
I stopped. I froze. I was like, did you say hot? Like, I don't know. I thought it was some young term that I just didn't know.
No, I'm
Girl,
hip.
you are.
No.
You're gorgeous. So yes.
Totally kidding.
Yes.
And that's my confidence, right? It's like I'm going into the space and I'm not worried about what you see.
Yeah.
Right. I know what I see in the mirror, and I know I see a Black woman.
Yeah.
Right. So you can say woman Black. I don't care what you say, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna see it.
Yeah.
And there's spaces where I definitely am like, I'm a Black woman. Right. Like that happens a lot, but it's momentarily. Right. Like you have to like kind of psych yourself up. Like, like I'm in this space, and this is who I am. And then sometimes it's like, like I might sit in the corner at a coffee shop, like it just kind of depends on like the
well, and for clarification, I only asked because I had done an interview with a friend of mine, Pam, on the podcast, and she's a VP, like she's an executive in technology, and she moved from the US to Copenhagen. And she was saying how Copenhagen, it's so different because she's American first, then a woman, and then Black. And that her experience in America was just so the opposite. And it was such an interesting dialogue because she was talking about how her children, they're not experiencing their Blackness the same way in that culture growing up as they would in America.
Yeah.
And so I had never, for obvious reasons, first of all, I'd never considered being considered American first. To me, you cannot see that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was surprising to me. But I never thought about people separating those things.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, I moved north to a little bit like central Washington, like a small town, very country. And one thing I really have valued is like my American like ethnicity, right? Like I have a cowgirl hat, I got cowgirl boots, I got American flag, I go to the rodeo every year, right? Like I didn't watch the Olympics though, but a little bit. But like I'm vibing with like that American culture because yes, I'm Black, right? But I also have to remember, like my ancestors have been here since the start of the country,
and they built it.
And they built it. It's like at a certain point, like when am I going to put American over my identity? So I like that idea of like the Copenhagen because it's a fine line. Like race conversations are a fine line, ethnicity conversations, immigration status, all that stuff's a fine line. Yeah. And as I'm like getting more confident of like my economic impact in the U.S. economy as a Black woman, I'm like, I have impacted my American economy, like it starts coming out.
That's
I'm like,
very true. Well, and the other thing that she and I talked completely separate from this is just a personal conversation. Yeah. We were talking, during COVID and George Floyd and Trump and all these things, we were talking about the American flag and how I have the cutest little house you could ever imagine. And I call it the bungalow, right? And I love the way it looks when a flag is hanging outside. Like, I just think it looks so small town and cute and like it's my little plot. But I was really struggling with it in all of that. And we talked about that. And she was like, well, why do people that hate get to own this country and this American flag? She's like, I've always looked at it as my ancestors built this country. And for many, many years, you have not allowed me to access that. And now we have the financial means and the exposure and opportunity to do that. And so I am. And it was such a wonderful statement to make that I might be a little nervous of what people might think of me when they see an American flag outside of my home. But I want to be the person that says, no, that's not what this means. Right. This does not represent hate. This does not represent all those things. And I think you're right. I think confidence has something to do with that. In being confident enough to know that what you are doing is in service of something or someone, then who cares if someone else hates it or thinks negatively about you? I say this all the time and people roll their eyes, but not everybody likes mint chocolate chip ice cream from Baskin Robbins. Yeah. That is delicious. Like, that's my favorite thing ever. Yeah. That doesn't mean they're lame and I'm amazing. That just means we have a different taste. No, I think their taste is weird, but and allowing space for that, I think creates better dialogue. Yeah. Right. And allows us Because I think most of what you see that we call confidence is not.
Yeah.
It is, oh, what do they call it? It's like those birds that puff their chests out to scare you away, right? It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So people put on arrogance and we confuse it with confidence. And it is one of the things I really enjoyed about you is you never at any point in that day, whether it was talking to me or other people, were you braggadocious? Were you, I'm going to use the word obnoxious because I can't think of anything else, right? There wasn't a narcissism that came from you at all. Even when you just said, I'm hot, it more was like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
Yeah. It wasn't because I was like, this lady. It was not that at all. It's like you have a charm and an effervescence to you that it's like, wow, she believes in herself at this level that is intoxicating and that I could learn from, right? And I'm 20 years old. I could be your mother, age theoretically,
You could, Mom.
and not even be a slutty teenager to do it, like, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean, like, it, and I was like, oh wow, and I was not intimidated by you. I wasn't like, well, we've got to cut this gal down to size. I was like, I need a piece of that. So how do I get in that orbit so that I can have a piece of that and do my best work?
Yeah.
That in no way interrupts any work that anybody else is doing. It's just that belief in myself. And so we had this conversation and we talked about, we were going to share this here. So and I'm so glad I can tell from your face you don't remember it. I'm so excited.
Oh, no, I don't.
So we're going to start with one.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask a precursor question first.
Okay.
When is the first memory you have of being confident in yourself?
I'm going to say this is the first memory that I can think of at the top of my head, if that's okay. And if it changes in 6 months, you guys just know that I remembered it 6 months later. So in 8th grade, I got in trouble. I got suspended. I got in some trouble 8th grade, right before high school. My parents were very upset with me and I got suspended. I had to take a bunch of classes and like outside of school classes. And I came back to school, right? Everyone knew I got suspended. Everyone knew what happened, right? So like now I have to like put on my burned feathers, right? Like, yeah, it happened, you know, like flapping my feathers around like, yeah, it happened. But I was like, and that was confidence, right? But it was like the fake confidence. I was like, this is not who I want to be. Like, this is like, I don't want people to be like, man, Ronisha gets suspended and then she comes back mean or confident, right? Like,
it's not going to break me. I'm going to use this.
Yeah. So I remember some high schoolers that came. I mean, they were recruiting for freshman class president. And I applied for freshman class president at my high school and I got it. Right. Like and I didn't think I would because I was like, I kind of told them, I was like, well, I got suspended. Like I was very like in the interview, I was like really nervous. I'm like, well, I got suspended. And like, I don't want you guys to think that I'm a bad kid, but this happened. And they like chuckled a little bit and they're like, no, you're the perfect fit. And that just kind of, I could be freshman class president, even after getting in trouble, right? Like that was like a nice little reality check for me. And I did it. And then I was good at it. And then I was sophomore vice president. Wasn't good at it. Was not good at that. Wasn't good at that. I sorry for my sophomore class. Was not a best VP. But then my junior year I took a break. And then my senior I was ASB president. Right. Like so it was like one of those things where it was just very that moment, like getting in trouble and just being like, that's not who I want how people to see me. How do I want people to see me? And then that was just like the start of it.
Okay. I want to know, we can do between 1 and 3.
Yeah.
But things that happen to you in your adult, well, it doesn't even have to be in your adult life. I don't care. I don't care. But that reinforced your confidence. Were they wins or were they just situations?
Very situational. Like I said, I never built the table on purpose, right? Like it was situational. And I went through a breakup in college and we were like living together. It was like a person I was in high school with and we went through a breakup, moved out, and I was living by myself. And I was just like, this is what it's like to be in a empty 1-bedroom apartment. You know, this is kind of lame, but also like, I don't have a choice. Like I have to learn how to embrace it. So I started doing like things by myself to hone in on like being okay with being alone. And that included going to, I remember the story. I went to this breakfast spot. And they had a community table. Do you know the proper term? A communion table?
No, community table.
Community table. Yeah. They had a community table and I had my book and I was like, I'm going to sit at this table and I cannot wait for people to just talk with other lonely people just like me. Like I was so ready. And that whole breakfast, no one sat at that table. Like no one was there. No one even looked in my direction. The waiter was like, here's your bill. Right? Like, it was just like, like, just think about that being like the climax of a sad movie, right?
Right.
Like, oh, at the coffee shop. So that was like what happened. And then I was like, okay, well, no one's going to come here to save me.
Yeah.
No one's going to come and join like this particular table,
Yeah.
right? Like they don't want breakfast right now, right? I don't know whatever why didn't join the table, but that was like my thought process of like, well, I have to remember that reminder of just like, I have me and I'm always going to have me. So how can I invest in me and continue to use like myself as my strength?
It's funny for two reasons. So one, I'm trying to do this one first because the other one might make me sing and no one wants to hear that. But I have a similar story of traveling, and I was in Prague by myself for 4 days. I was on a work trip in Dubai and I was going to Copenhagen on Monday. And so in between, I had these 4 days and I was like, well, I'll just go somewhere. It doesn't make sense to go all the way home. So I went to Prague and I did a jazz boat. Like that's the thing, right? And I brought my Kindle, like I brought some headphones for when the music wasn't playing, I guess. I don't know. And I got on this boat and I ordered a bottle of wine. And there was a couple sitting next to me and they had asked me something and I thought, oh, they want to talk. So I was like, oh, would you like some wine? And they literally took the bottle, turned around and finished my whole bottle by themselves and never talked to me again. And I was like, oh, okay. Be more specific when you offer people things. Like it was, and it was this lesson, like, no, it's not always going to work that, people sit with you at this table. But the other was driving to Washington this weekend and I was listening to like old music and not like really old.
I'm like, I need to know this.
No, it was still Beyonce.
Okay.
It was still Beyonce, but it was like that, me, myself, and I. That's all I got.
Yeah, talk about confidence.
Yeah. And I was singing it in the car because it can be a sad song if you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And I think culturally we've tried to make that be a sad story.
Yeah.
But the reality is, especially for women, okay, the average American woman does not get married now, college educated, until her mid-30s, her early to mid-30s. Means they're having babies later, right? The average divorce now happens late 30s, early 40s. So women are alone again. They get remarried, men die before us, we're alone again. So the majority of our life is spent alone as women, way more than men.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you cannot find a way to be at peace alone, to enjoy solitude, to revel in it, to think, God, I'm the best date I've ever had. That is not a lonely, miserable thing.
Yeah.
That is an empowering thing because, and Stacy, who we had talked about earlier, she was on an episode of the podcast a few episodes ago. We talk about this a lot, that like, I'm my own best company. And if I am good on my own, then when people meet me, I don't have anything to prove. Yeah. You can either like it or not. And my stability emotionally, mentally, physically is not going to change based on that.
Yeah.
And that is such a good baseline for confidence.
Yeah.
Is saying, gosh, I'd really like to be surrounded by people. I'd like companionship.
Yeah.
But if I don't have it, and when I don't have it, I get to choose what I do with that time. And no one else does. So I can wallow, be miserable, or I can go find what I love. Like so many people don't have hobbies. I'm included in that. I've never really had hobbies. Yeah. But girl, I try everything. Like there is nothing I have not tried. And look, I'm bad at so many things. Like it's just awful. But I try it and then I'm like, okay, fail fast, move forward.
Never do
We're
that
gonna try
again.
something else, right? Like that is not my testimony, if you will, or my ministry. I'm going to move on to something else. Because like my first time ever feeling confident would have been in the 6th grade. And I'm going to shout somebody out here and they will never listen to this. So I'm going to do it anyways. But actually, I won't say a last name just in case. I was at Greenway Elementary for field day and there was a shootout, like whatever, basketball shootout. And I came in 2nd place with all the boys. First place was somebody named Jimmy, to my recollection. And I remember thinking, am I the best basketball player in this school? Now, I had never played basketball before or since, but became obsessed with basketball for a good 20 years afterwards and always was like, no, I'm really good. I am not good. If you saw me shoot a basket today, you would be mortified by what it looks like. Like the form, all of it. It is ridiculous. But for some reason, it's very Little Giants, if you've ever seen the movie. It only takes one time, right? And on that one day, for some reason, I made the shots and they got in the basket. And that was, I did not feel confident again until I was 30, in my 30s. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. But I remember that day. I remember that ribbon.
Well, you know, I'm gonna have to ask, was that the trip to Copenhagen or
no? Some people will know this. It's kind of my origin story for Eliminate Girl Hate, but I was on a stage and I had been asked to speak for the company I was working with quite a few times, Oakley, and every time bawling, like tears, shaking, sweating, just awful. And then they had asked me to talk about women and the economy of gender and why women shop and culturally how that has changed our world and capitalism and all these things. And I was supposed to do it for these little groups. I did it 6 1-hour sessions in a day. And it was like 200 people by the end of the day or whatever. Yeah. And then people asked me to come to their locations, their retail locations, and train their teams. And I started to do it. And it was like this 6-month thing. And I spent a week in North Carolina and it was like 30 people here, 30 people here. The last day we were expecting 35, over 400 showed up. Wow. They had to open up this conference room at the Marriott and I'm like super nervous. And then I go on. First of all, my outfit was so great. Mm-hmm. My hair was really good, which I'm sorry, it's important. And I went on stage and I killed it. Like people laughed in the right parts. They asked questions. They were nodding their heads. They were taking notes. And it was just so good. And I got off the stage and I walked out these double doors. And there was so much adrenaline in my body, right? And I took a deep breath and I said, holy shit, this must be what Beyonce feels like. Oh, yeah. And I have later, as I told this story, said, if I only had a fan, because I was sweating like crazy. I know why she has a fan now. Yeah. And the person who hired me or brought me in, he was the president of this company. He heard me say that. Yeah. And he giggled and I turned around. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And he goes, you tell me what you need. We'll hire you today. You can be our head of marketing, whatever. You just tell us what you need. And I was so overwhelmed. But I had never in my entire life, and I'm going to word this differently than I would have 10 years ago. I'd never recognized being good at something. Mm-hmm. And I would cry to my mom all the time. I mean, in my 20s, and be like, I don't understand. I'm the oldest of 6 and they're all so amazing. They're so talented. They're beautiful. They're interesting. They're smart. I am none of those things. And my mom would be like, your talent is business. And I would be like, that's not talent. I would never hang up on my mom. I just want to clarify that because I made a hang up signal. But I was like, I can't talk to you anymore. Yeah. And that moment was the first time I was like, wait, is this it? Is this what I'm good at? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do with my life? Mm. And there's nothing like that feeling in the world. And I think even more so when you spent a whole life searching for it. Yeah. Right? Because now I had all this confidence that had nowhere to go. Like, I was like, this isn't my real job. Like, what am I going to do with this? And then the hard work comes because you got to figure out what to do with it. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
That's the hard, yeah. Because you got to present multiple times, right? Like, you got to you got to find TED Talks. You got to find people like, who wants to hear me talk?
Right. Like, hey guys, I love to talk. Will you and my whole family's like, no shit. Like your baby book says you talked at 6 months old. Like that's not normal. We get it. You like to talk. Yeah. Like, and then even though you're confident in that moment, then another doubt comes in, right? And says, well, if my family and friends don't want to hear me talk, why would anybody else want to hear me talk, right? And you're telling yourself lies. It's narratives.
There's that seed of doubt is so important. And just even like us, it's other people plant it. We're the ones who water it, right? Like even if other people are like, oh, like you're not good enough, whatever that is. And we're like, you're right, I'm not good enough. We're literally watering whatever seed has been planted versus like rooting it out.
Yes.
Like on my arm, it's Matthew 15:13. And it's every plant that my Father has not planted shall be pulled up by the root. Right. And it's like, what's in my garden is meant for me. And like, if it's not meant, like it's gonna get pulled. I don't gotta touch it, right? But it's gonna get handled.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting because story is very important to me. Yeah. I believe that story is the foundation for all change in the world. And whether that be huge, sweeping cultural change, political change, whatever, right? Movements, or just our own personal growth. It is the stories we tell others, and it is the stories that we tell ourselves, and how we frame that to tell ourselves lies, truths, or somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Because most of us don't know the truth. And just because one person one time said one thing to you does not make that all encompassing of your life. And yet we let it.
Yep.
We let it. And now in the age of social media and all the hate and the vitriol and the trolling and things like that, it can be really hard to find stability or that root that keeps your shoulders back and your head up. And so how do you find that? For you.
Oh, that's a question.
I'm not asking other people. Yeah, sorry. Wow.
Whoa.
Let's get real philosophical. We have no wine, so I really threw that into.
I have cold brew.
Yeah. But for you, like, how do you find that root for you? What do you go to when you're maybe realizing, am I chasing a narrative that's not right, or?
So this, like I said, one, I want to just go back to that Bible verse. I'm not sure if I quoted it perfectly. Just want to call it out now. But also, to your question, I'm like, if somebody like that's not what that said.
Excuse me, Bible scholars, do not at us.
Yes, it's just on my hand. But on your question, right, of the root, I would say being just like I said, like watering, like being around people who are going to plant the seed of confidence around you. So I go to an indoor cycling studio, right? I've been going there for 3 years, and basically it's just a dark room full of beautiful women. Sometimes there's one man there. We call out the man, right? We're like, hey man, like but it's a dark room, and like you just cycle into music and dancing, and like the instructors are just like, you're beautiful, you're confident, you got out of bed tonight, like just like super just what I need sometimes, right? Because I give myself a prep talk. I'm able to give myself a prep talk. I can put my pants on, I guess my skirt on, and like walk out the door. My go-to mantra is, it's not that deep, right? Like that's rooted in me. It's not that deep. But sometimes it is, but I don't want to acknowledge it. So like having an external party validation, right? Like you were just telling that story about on stage, and everyone's like, nodding their head. It's like, sometimes you have it in you, and other people need to water it as well, right? Like sometimes you have the seed, you planted it, but you're like, man, like, is it, do you like it?
Because the world will lie to you.
Yeah.
The world will lie to you to bring you down.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. So I really just go into spaces that protect my energy. Like that's where I go now. And I have those spaces like marked on my phone GPS, right? It's like, are you going to ride and shine today? Like, I guess I am. So that's going to be my answer to your question.
No, I think that's really good. I think that's the answer everyone would say, but they would say it in different ways, right? Like I had to change what my social media was. I had to change how I interacted with the news of the world, because I have a very soft heart and I feel for the world, and it's difficult for me, right? And so I have to monitor how I do that, and in what structures I do that, and formats and things of that nature, so that I'm not ignorant. because I want to be informed and I want to know what's happening around me, but I don't want it to control my narrative. I want to still have a narrative. And so I'm also very intentional with, I wasn't always, but I'm intentional with how I seek out creativity and seek out curiosity. I try lots of new things now that I never would have tried before. And I've always been a little I'm adventure. I'm the biggest scaredy cat daredevil you've ever met in your life, if you will.
Yeah.
I hate dare. I hate anything that seems dangerous. But I'm also like, but if they come back and they're all like hooting and hollering because they had the best time ever, and I just sat in my hotel room, I'm gonna hate that. So I'll go. And then I go and I cry all the way through it. Like, I'm like, I hate this, but I'm so glad I did it. I challenge myself a lot because maybe I don't always have those checks and balances in my life. Yeah. So I got to be them for myself and figure out how to do that. I also am in a lot of therapy. I just want to preface that.
I am in zero therapy.
You're young, give it time.
I know. No, my friend's a therapist, and I like watch her like posting on social media, like her marketing, and like I'm like, how fun? Like I'm like not fun. It's not. But I'm like, like, because each one is like, because I have a couple therapist friends, like each one is like targeting a different demographic. So their marketing looks different and like how they're supporting and what support people need is so important. And I thought about it for a while, but I'm not ready right now in my life. Right. So I'll give it
I will not. I no longer want to be a person who pushes things on other people. I'm trying really hard not to do that. Yeah. I've learned some lessons as of recently about it. However, I do believe that every human being could benefit from therapy. I think there's a misnomer about what it is and what it provides to people. But most people don't have an entirely free, safe space to say whatever they want and to explore the parts of them that may not be popular. And therapy allows you to do that in a way where you can get things out and then decide, is that something I still want to play with and interact with, or is it something I'm going to throw away now because I was able to get it out? And I think that's beneficial for people. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, laying down on a couch hysterically using a box of Kleenex the way it is for me. That doesn't have to be what it is for everybody. And it also doesn't have to be this full-time thing. It can be a check-in every once in a while. It can be during difficult times, but it is more and more difficult to get that from the people in our lives because of the lives we lead. Yeah. They're so busy and they're overcome with things. And we all have trauma, whether we cop to it or not, right? Yeah. Trauma is everywhere and we could all use healing from that. Yeah. And so, but again, do you, boo? Yeah. Is my mantra. Like, you have to do what works for you, right? And there's also a lot of people that will say, depending on why people go to therapy isn't the be all end all either, right? There's all sorts of things in combination that we do as humans to survive this experiment we call life and to grow and become the people that we are supposed to be. And I'm exploring that a lot lately.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm like, maybe I'm not going to therapy because I don't want them to be like, Renisha, you're crazy. Like, like we're going to diagnose you.
What's a bad therapist if that's what they're saying?
You're I'm totally kidding. No, you're 100% right. That point of just like being able to test certain things and to talk in a safe space where you don't feel judged per se, right? Like, I'm paying you to listen to me, or maybe I'm not paying you.
Context to it as well, right? Like, one of the nice things was I thought I was crazy. And my therapist is like, are you crazy? Or, and I'm like, wait, there's an or? Yeah. I thought there was a period after that crazy, maybe even an exclamation point, right? Yeah. Like, and there's also a form of being seen. And sometimes I think life can get to a place where you don't feel seen. Maybe you feel misunderstood, misinterpreted, you know, you don't feel like you fit into whatever the environments or spaces are that you are in.
Yeah.
And so we tell ourselves, I'm crazy, I'm this, and we turn it negative.
Yeah.
When in fact, you might just be in the wrong places. And so whether this is therapist, a coach, a mentor, a pastor, whoever has your best interest at heart and no other agenda, that is always going to be a valuable resource in life, right? And in whichever way you get that is kind of how I think. And in a lot of ways, it's helped me become more confident.
Yeah.
I don't feel crazy anymore, which is really refreshing, right? Like, wow, I'm not crazy. Oh,
I'll get to the level of there one day.
So when you said you give yourself pep talks, which I love, I am a big fan of the pep talk. I was sort of introduced to it by Brad Montague and Kid President, like 10, 12, 15 years, however long ago it was, that viral sensation of a pep talk. And it kind of changed my life in a weird way, because it was like, oh, how do you do that? So, you know, maybe you wake up one day and you've had a rough couple of weeks, things have stressed you out, and you're feeling less confident than is your status quo.
So since you gave me that scenario, I'll give you my reaction to that one, but then also just like in general. So when I need a prep talk boost, it's actually not a verbal conversation with myself. It comes in the format of me like writing down. Like I actually, like if I am overwhelmed, if I have a lot of projects, a lot of stuff on my plate, like my prep talk is actually like a to-do list. Like, and it's a project plan and I break it down. I break it down. I know, right? Relax, win. But it's a project.
You're not type A perfectionist at all. We could have done a whole other episode on that.
But I run like, what do I have to do with this category of my life? What do I need to do in this category of my life? And I think of it like college classes. It's like this semester, these are the classes that are on my curriculum. And like, what do I need to do to pass these classes in an A? And acknowledging that my life's going to look different in 3 months, right? Because things are going to change, especially with the type of work that I do. Like we're doing different projects and meeting with different people. So my prep talk is actually like a detailed project plan in a note in like one of my prettiest notebooks. And then it turns into, look at all the stuff that you've been blessed with. Look at all the stuff that you need to steward and all the people that you're having an impact on. Like it's like, and it turns into that of like acknowledging what I'm doing and the impact of what I'm doing once I complete it.
And are you good at keeping yourself accountable, or do you have like accountability checkpoints or accountability partners that help you stay on track?
It really just depends on my level of motivation for it. Like I bought a bunch of vitamins and I was like, I'm going to wake up every morning and take my vitamins. I can tell you how many times I've woken up to take my vitamins, right? Like there's that level of like, it kind of like depends on the importance. If I'm promising someone something, like you're a consultant, right? You know, like you have a project that you want to complete on. I am more likely going to complete that without accountability. Right. Because
they're your accountability.
Exactly. They are like, I owe you something. We don't need to check in every week. Like, you know, like it's the outcome because I know it's for you. And that person's my accountability. When it comes to myself, there's a level of accountability lacking because I'm like, oh, like there's that comfortability and the stability, right? Like I'm comfortable, I'm stable. So what I'm doing right now is just additional. Right. And like people get stuck in that level sometimes. So I have to prep talk myself of like, Renisha, like, you know what you want. And yes, you're stable now, but like comfortability, like people get stuck there and that's okay. It's okay to be, I'm going to say it. It's okay to be average. Right.
Yes.
But then also it's okay to want to be more than average. Right. Like that's.
It's, I love it. Yes, it is okay to be content. That's the word I want to use.
Yep.
I will not say who this person was, but I was at a session with this person who's like a high level executive coach. And he was so adamant that you should never be satisfied. And I really disagree with that because I think in this culture, we glorify busyness, right? It's the glorification of busy. And busy does not mean fulfilling. It does not mean sustainable, all of those things. Yeah. And so we also forget to enjoy the win, to be content in a moment or stay in the present because we're always saying, what's next, what's next, what's next. And so I think it is okay to be content. And that decision is, what do I want for my life? Am I there yet? Right?
Yeah.
If life ended today, would I be happy with what I put into it, what I gave, what I got, with where I am? Right? There's another flip of that where we're working so hard towards the future that it's not even the future we necessarily want anymore. Right? Like you can get distracted by what the world tells you should be doing or what you want.
Yeah.
And so guilty.
Yep.
And I think that's why we have so much burnout right now, right? Is we're not doing things in service of ourselves. And so the vitamin example, so many people related. I know they were head noddings. I know people were laughing in their car as they listened, right? Because we've all done it, right? Not all of us go to Rise and Shine every day, Ronisha, and spin our little hearts out. We eat the French fries, not the green beans, right? Like we do all of that. And we always do more for others than we do for ourselves because we have been taught that that is noble.
Yep.
And it's not. Being selfish has been labeled as a negative word. And there is a difference in being selfish that's in service of yourself and your own health, whether that be mental, physical, emotional, financial, right? And just being a narcissist who doesn't give a crap about anybody.
Yeah.
And I do think that we, in our drive and our focus to be the best that we can be or to be above average, as you say, we also have to find those moments to ensure, is that journey in service of me?
Yeah.
Right? And when our confidence gets shaky, it's normally because the journey is not in service to us and we just don't see it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard the expression, God speaks in a whisper. And then I don't know the actual saying, I say, and then all of a sudden you get smacked upside the head and you're like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Because you weren't listening to the whispers. Now, I'm not saying you have to be religious. I'm not even using that in a religious context.
Yeah.
Like it could be the universe for all I care, right? But the universe puts things in our path that we ignore all the time because we think we know better, whatever, all sorts of reasons, right? We don't have time, right? Or we feel selfish. But that universe will smack you upside the head at some point. So you can decide to listen early or late. And taking those moments, I like the idea of writing it down because there is a brain synapse that happens when we write things down. Mel Brooks talks about giving yourself a high five in the mirror every morning for getting up and making your bed. I do not know who this was originally attributed to.
Yeah.
I'm going to attribute it to Howard White, who was president of Brand Jordan at Nike for years. But I heard him speak when I was like 20 or 21 and I was working there. And he had said, make your bed every day because you're starting every day having accomplished something. And you may not do anything else for the rest of the day, but you started with a win. When you start with a win, you might be able to get a few more chucked up, right? And I know people say it all the time, so it's not like I'm rocking anyone's world with this epiphany. And I'm sure someone else attributed, I just heard it from him.
Yeah.
But it's finding the things that are little to win and be confident at. And so even, when you are in a space where you're like, I just can't get a win right now, like life is hard. Your win might be emptying the dishwasher. Your win might be making the bed. Your win might be taking a shower.
Yeah.
That's a win and we should celebrate it. So we shouldn't dismiss those things, right? So I loved the high five in the mirror. I try to do it, but it feels super awkward. So lately I've been singing in the mirror or rapping. Don't get scared. I did it this morning to a song called Self-Aware that I'm super self-obsessed with. And it is like being a bad bitch and telling myself that I'm being a bad bitch, right? Like, okay, you know what? You are good. I don't care if people talk shit about me. Like, I know, right?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. And I'm gonna be a little cocky this morning. And so I do it in the mirror. I don't do this as often, but I used to do Friday night dance parties in my underwear. And it's important that it's in your underwear because, and I do it where there's a mirror.
Like Britney Spears. Like
I mean, I'm not sexy dancing. There's no cobra snake around me. I don't have those abs
your
by any
next
stretch.
Instagram post.
Right. It will not be in my underwear. I can guarantee all of that. So do not stop following me for fear. It's to become more comfortable with myself mentally, physically, and visually.
Yeah.
Because so much of our confidence is around that, right? We hide the things we don't like. And so, if no one's home on a Friday night, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out and I'm just going to get in and I'm going to look at it and be like, wow, my body is working today. Look at it moving for me. Like I told it to get down with the get down and it did.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and there, I think all of those things that these experts in fields tell you to do around that, it's a recognition of ourselves instead of waiting for other people to clap for us. Right. Yeah. I have a favorite poet named Rudy Francisco. He's like a spoken word artist. And I just bought a print of his not that long ago, signed. I feel so special. But in his poem, he says, I'm still learning to clap for the parts of me that no one sees. Or no one recognizes. I'm probably quoting it wrong. Yeah. And for me, that is such a thing because I thought I was awful at everything until I was in my mid 30s. And then, by the way, it wasn't until COVID where I was like, wow, I'm kind of good or at least okay at a lot of things. Yeah. How did I not ever know this? Like, why didn't I ever try this before? And it's fear, right? Yeah. Fear is the enemy of confidence, and ignorance is sometimes the best friend of confidence, right? You just got to shake it off and say, I can do this, right? I'm hot.
Yeah. One more time.
Yeah, I'm hot. Yeah. I had to put a little stank on it, right? Like I'm hot. So I'm going to wrap this up. And what I like to do when I wrap it up is I always want to give the guest the last word. And since we're talking about confidence, if you could have your way, what would you want to people to take away from this conversation about owning their confidence, embracing their confidence?
I would say, this is going to be really dramatic. So
I love it.
You need to be around people. And I know there's that self-confidence factor, right? And of course, internally, but you need to be around people who support you, who love you, who admire you, who believe in you. And if you cannot find, if they're not in your network right now, find them. And for those, and I'm going to say it, block them. Block the people who are not in your best interest, right? I know that's really dramatic and I might change my mind later, but since people have access to me now, I could be in a meeting, and I can miss a text message. And because there's such instant access with cell phones, that person's maybe thinking of their own narrative of why I'm not responding or why I'm not interacting with them. And it's just people have access to you and we can't do anything about that. So how do we control the access and who has access to us? So that would be my suggestion is if you know that you want to do a dance class, find a dance studio with other people who want to do dance classes with you. If there aren't other people that want to join you, go by yourself and do it. But I just keep your circle close and people who love you and respect you and look up to you as your root. So if you have an idea, present it to them first. Don't present it to people who don't believe in you, right? Present it to people who are yeah, you can do anything. You're a rock star. Yes, try it. Versus the people who are yeah, well, how's it going to work? And who's going to pay for it? And where are the resources coming from? And you don't have to block those people. But, and the other thing would be music. Music, you mentioned it several times, and on my way down here, we're in Beaverton, Oregon, by the way, but on my way down here, right, I'm listening to so many songs, and I'm dancing, I'm oh, this song is so good, and oh, this song is so sad, but it's so good, and I listened to Flawless by Beyonce, and it's wake up, flawless, and then I think there's a poem by Maya Angelou about women being in competition and being encouraged to marry and have children, and I literally was just music is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
Artists create, right? We're all artists. It doesn't matter what we create. We're all artists. And how beautiful is it that musicians choose to make music to empower us? And I always think how does Beyonce have such a big fan base? Why is everyone so obsessed with her? But then I'm also she's empowering and she's building confidence and she's showing people like, I can do this and this and this and a country album, right? Like I can do anything.
Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, like you can. You can do anything.
And
girl.
if you can, hold on, maybe?
Yeah, like,
And that's the seed.
yeah,
That's
the
all
seed.
you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
So that would be my final thoughts is like listen to some good music, have some good people around you. If you have an idea, share it with good people.
I love it. Now, how can people find you if they want to find you?
Yes. So our website is hayesconsultingandcoaching.com. I also have my own personal Instagram. You can follow it. It's just me smiling at Ronisha Gang. And those are the two forms that we have for people to access us.
Awesome. Thank you for having this conversation with me. I loved it. I had a really good time. I talked too much, but you just made me so comfortable. So, thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, you get it, right? Ronisha was so awesome. I loved her spirit. I loved her energy. And I love that she has taken control of her own narrative, her own life, her own business, her own purpose. And she's done that with a really supportive network of women who lift her up. And so often we are told that those don't exist, that women are competitive and catty and all of these negative kind of narratives around that. And we talk a little bit about that in this episode of where those come from and how we're kind of squashing them as women who are working to empower each other and the people that surround us. And I think Ronisha does a really good job of that. And it's really amazing to see someone in the younger generation take the reins like that. And in this episode, I think we're reminded very frequently of our age difference. And yet I kind of want to hang out with her, right? Like she's just cool. I wish I had more things to say in this outro, but I just really think the episode kind of speaks for itself. And it does that a really good job of showing what it looks like when women really enjoy each other's company, share and support and lift each other up. And we hope that that is what you got out of this episode. And we hope that it can help you find your confidence and lead with your confidence and not be ashamed or afraid of it. Because as Ronisha reminds us, she's hot, I'm hot, we're all awesome. And we can go out and do dope things with our life that means something to us. If you want to find Ronisha online, I think we mention it in the episode, but just in case, it's hayesconsulting.com. And as always, you can find us on social media at Eliminate Girl Hate. And wait, hold up, what? Please follow us, like, comment. Don't forget, you're listening to an episode right now. If you like what you're hearing, leave us a review on Apple Podcast. Give us 5 stars. That helps us get into that algorithm and gets more people listening, which is what we really would like. And you can also visit the website at eliminategirlhate.com. We've got some great swag on there. We've got ways that you can hire us to come speak or coach and just find out all of the things that we're doing. You can also subscribe to our newsletter. We promise no spamming. We do not send out stuff very often, but we do ever so often want to let you know what we're doing and provide you a place of community that is supportive and demanding. So until next time, we hope you have a wonderful week.